I love the idea of bringing these untold stories to life, these hidden figures, these real people who did amazing things and we didn't know their names. And I think that's because no one told Jessie's story before. And history untold is history that's easily erased. And so we have to do everything as Black writers to move into the space to make sure our history isn't erased.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, definitely talk about.
Jessie Redmon Fauset stayed with me so much that I had a hard time letting her go to write my next book. And it's interesting because characters have to stay. You have to become them. You have to be part of them and they have to become part of you. But it was different with Jessie. It was like, y'all found me, now I'm not letting you go, right? It was different with her, and then I really did like the 1920s, the Gilded Age. I wanted to do that, and then I said, oh, Harlem Renaissance, because I'm a writer, there'll be something interesting there. But when I started looking around for women of the Harlem Renaissance, there were none. They mentioned Zora and Nella, but they didn't mention anybody else, and I just kept looking, and then I listened to a podcast called Harlem on My Mind. And it was the story of Jessie Redmon Fauset. And I went by Tremaine Lee here he's a Harlemite. And so it was so interesting because I hadn't heard her name, so I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and Langston said she was the midwife of the Harlem Renaissance. And I'm like, really? And I don't know her name? This was the story that needed to be told right now during this time where books are so important, where books are being banned, where they are trying to get rid of our history. I needed to tell this story of the woman who started it all. I always tell people that the books that you're going to read this year, and if there are authors here, the books you're going to write this year, none of them would have happened without Jessie Redmon Fauset. She was the first, and she got us started. I don't want to write a history book. I'm not writing a biography. And it is interesting, you have historical fiction, like they don't go together. And that's what I love about it. Because people ask me all the time, how much is history, how much is fiction? I don't know. This is what I know. I anchor every single scene in history. Every single scene in that book is based on something I know. So for example, the book starts out when she arrives in New York. We know she arrived in New York because she became the literary editor of the Crisis magazine. We know that she had a first day on the job. So everything is anchored in history, but I don't know what she said. I don't have any tapes. I don't have any video of what they discussed. So that's where the fictional part comes in. And so I always want people to know that this is what I imagine Jessie's life to be with the facts that I know. It would be disingenuous to say that things haven't changed for the good, because the fact that I'm sitting up here, things have changed for the good. The fact that Harlem Rhapsody has been embraced by a major publisher means that things have changed for the good. But there are still struggles. Yeah. There are still struggles. Any excuse to not push a Black author. And it doesn't come from the publishers. The outside forces are like, that's not, she has to prove herself. She has a Victoria Christopher Murray with 30 books, all these movies, she needs to prove herself. Those kinds of things. And Jessie every day she had to prove herself every single day. So we're still doing that. I don't suffer from it as much, the sexism in publishing, as she did. There were no women in publishing. And so even the vendors didn't want to work with Jessie. There's a scene in the book where the printer's like, I'm not talking to you. You're a doll. Did you go to school? And so he probably hadn't even graduated from high school. She had a degree from Cornell, and he's asking her, had she ever gone to school? Or he asked her, what grade did you finish? And so she had all of those challenges, but not only with those people. She had challenges with W.E.B. Du Bois, who would say, oh, don't worry about the numbers, baby. Don't worry your pretty little head about the numbers. You don't really understand this. I got that.
Or when in the book where he would kind of leave out women, when he would talk about he wants to show
The importance
of showing men.
I want to show the important
Brilliant.
black men.
Yes.
And every time he said that, she's like, and women, and women. And she really pushed the women writers of the Harlem Renaissance. She gave everybody a place, and the bigger names that we know are men. But look at all those other names of Nella Larson, Zora Neale Hurston, Ann Spencer, Carrie, I can't think of Carrie's last name right now, let's see. But all of these women that she pushed in the Harlem Renaissance. We don't know their names, but we're going to know their names now because everybody's going to buy this book, right? And then you're going to tell 5 people, right? And then everybody who reads this is going to go down that rabbit hole to find all of these writers and say, why didn't I know about all of this?